And welcome back in to another edition of DOLAN'S Dugout for Monday, April 20th with your host, Steve Dolan. I'm Ramon Scott. We got a couple of guests with us this week, Adam Paul of VC Preps, and Steve. We've got him, unhinged. We're going to learn about distance education with Educator and sportswriter. We love him as a sportswriter, but we love him even more instructing the young kids in the classroom, JIM LINDGREN of the San Diego Union Tribune, East County Sports, LA Times, North County Times, all the time, Steve. We got JIM LINDGREN with us.
Well, glad to have Jim. Jim's my teammate going back more than 30 years at the LA Times here in San Diego. Of course, they left in 1992, but Jim and I were teammates before that. And Jim, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So glad to be here. So glad to be anywhere.
We had to get Jim. He was busy. He was very, very busy teaching and getting his week together. We're all so busy. We're all so busy, Steve.
Well, Jim, tell us actually about, because I know that you teach in the Santee School District and the K-8 distance learning. That's a big topic right now. What's going on with that, and how's that going so far?
It sure is a big topic, and it is. It's hard to tell, really, because I'm only on one end of this. How is it going? So, from my perspective, I think it's going fantastic. But how much is reaching out to the kids and so forth? I don't know. But as I was talking earlier with Moni, I said we're in a very strange situation where when would we ever close the schools and tell the kids we're going to do something differently for a month or a month and a half or 2 months? We would never do that. And hopefully we never will again have to do that. But this can be a wonderful opportunity for a new experience and for the students, no matter what age they are, to learn new ways of doing things and to learn new communicative ways. These are skills they're going to be using their entire life, whether in school or in jobs or whatever the case may be. They're getting a real good head start here. So we can look at it at that. It's a wonderful opportunity if we choose to make it that way.
Well, now, Jim, in my days, as you know, I worked at San Diego State for 15 and a half years with their extension program. And, of course, that was more like if any of us were to go back to school, the adults that would have already been through college and in jobs or whatever. But at that level, of course, online learning had become a big deal because we noticed, especially for the adult learners, it was really hard back when we were all working to where, you'd work from 8 to 5, 9 to 5. And the last thing you want to do would be to drive to San Diego State to take classes. So you would take them online. So I know at that level, online classes have been a big deal. But like I say, once you get like through the K-8 or K-12, it's a whole different ballgame for them, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a given for college-age students now to be taking online courses and graduate students for sure. I think high school, there are quite a few students who do online courses through high school. There's some high schools that are even almost entirely for a few select number of students. But I think this is, I think we're going to find out a few things here. At the high school level, they may adjust some schedules later in the future and where many of the students are taking 3 or 4 courses at the school face-to-face and maybe 1 or 2 online from home. That may happen more in the future. I think on our level, the elementary level, and junior high, I think we're gonna be incorporating a lot of what we're doing right now into our regular curriculum program in the fall and next year and the years to come.
Well, hopefully. The high school, the high schools kind of already have an online component with the learning resource center. When I was still subbing in the Grossmont district, I subbed quite a bit in that class for my friend at Santana. I was just in there basically as an overseer. It wasn't like I could do anything because I don't have access to the computers or anything. But these were kids, who were having issues in the classroom for whatever, and some were contracted where they could actually do their work at home, and then they had to by the contract come in 1 or 2 days a week or whatever it was, and then the other kids had to do all their stuff online in the learning resource lab. Now, it was really interesting because when I would sub for him, sub for my friend there at Santana, the kids that would come in for the contract, they would just come in anytime that they wanted, and of course they could leave anytime they wanted. And one couple of the kids that I got to know pretty well, yeah, pretty much that I got to know pretty well. They said, yeah, we just do everything at home, and you have to be pretty motivated to to do that. I think with all the distractions and stuff.
Yes, you do. We know from a sports writer standpoint what it's like to buckle down and get after it. And so, we were trained in that regard, working from home, or working from a stadium, working from a remote site. We've all done that for, 30 plus years and so forth. So it's second nature to us. But for other people, not so much. And they really, I think one of the first main keys is to establish an agenda, a time frame, a schedule of some sort for the students. This is what you're going to do from this time to this time, and so on and so on.
Yeah,
from there, just start doing it.
Yeah, and Steve, my concerns, or anybody's concern, not my personal concern, but is making sure that all of the students have access to computers, to networks, to make those connections. And I think we're fortunate in the area that we're in here, not only in East County, but you saw San Diego Unified this week. They took great pride in distributing all of the Chromebooks that they did, thousands of Chromebooks to students, maybe students that wouldn't have an opportunity to purchase these Chromebooks in certain areas of the county, of the country, really. So that's a certain concern, Jim, moving forward as education moves, maybe this step that we've been missing for many years that maybe we probably should have taken, and out of complacency or convenience, we had not progressed. But hey, we were streaming when streaming wasn't cool, and now here we are. But will kids be able to move forward? Those that might not have opportunities, they're getting those computers into their hands and making internet more affordable. I think if any parent or any family that might have trouble, this goes for our students as well. I believe in the district. In our districts, that if they're having any problems, you can contact your provider, and you probably can gain access to the internet for a discounted rate because you have a student in your family.
Absolutely, I dealt with that yesterday, in fact, and got the family free internet connection for 3 months, and very low cost after that. I think it was $9 a month. Beyond that, for Wi-Fi connection at home. So there are wonderful programs out there, not just in terms of the satellite connection, the Wi-Fi connection at homes, but also the device itself, having a laptop or a computer or some sort of stuff. People are chipping in. These companies really are chipping in. It's a terrible time, but we're also seeing some wonderful things out of organizations as well as people. So we can pat ourselves on the back for that.
Now, Jim, I was curious, when the kids first started online learning, could you tell how they were reacting to it, or what was their reaction to it?
That's the interesting thing, Steve, is we just don't know. You can tell in the classroom exactly who's getting it. You can see the light bulbs going off above their head, whether they get it or not, how much they pay attention, what's going on. This is absolutely blind. We have no idea. We can't see one student. Maybe we get somebody who chimes in with something. I mean, if you're on a Zoom class, or I use Zoom as the term, but social conferencing site or something like that, most of the kids are muted. You might see their faces nodding once in a while or something like that. But remember, you've got 30 kiddos as well, and you don't see them. It's really, really, really difficult to find out and to understand who's getting it.
So you guys are doing it live then, huh, Jim?
It can be done. It's a little bit of both. I mean, the video conferencing is just a small component, maybe an hour during a day for any one teacher, and usually twice a week, or if some are doing it 4 days a week or something like that. But it's not the full component day. So there's quite a bit where you're just not seeing the students at all. And some of the students are working at 8 o'clock in the morning, some of them at noon, some of them at 3, some of them at 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
I found myself on a Friday night, a parent telling me, I think it was 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
When did that ever happen? We're having a conference at 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Wow.
Different times.
No, it definitely is, because the way I was reading it, that the letter sent out by the Grossmont district was that, like you said, there was going to, it didn't really sound like they were doing a live component. Hearing from the teachers that I know, it didn't sound like that, they were going to be doing it all, live. It was going to be all, like you said, video conferencing or whatever. They would post I think the thing was Mondays is science and history, and Tuesdays is math. I mean, they were breaking it up per day, I guess.
Every situation is going to be a little bit different in terms of the student or the teacher still does run the classroom. You're given this set of a curriculum and so forth. What we've done is our curriculum has changed because of this situation. So now, instead of face-to-face things, instead of small group learnings or groups or whatever, full in class, whether it's a lecture or read along or activity things, hands-on, we're just having to dive into everything via this box, via this device, an iPad, a laptop computer, whatever it is they're trying to get into that. So personally, trying to make it as fun as possible for them and me. It's a lot easier to do work that's fun than it is to do drag work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Keep it enjoyable. There's a lot of stuff to be learned out there.
I have enough trouble just keeping up with 3 guys on the screen. I don't know how you might do it with 30, but what Jim said, isn't so far out of the question. Not only transferring maybe some or portions of classes in the future, not only at the grade school level, but also at those upper levels, might become. And again, everything's like he said, in a 2-week period. We're kind of going every 2 weeks here at this point, right? In COVID land. But it could be because of class sizing, social distancing, the amount of time that kids might see. Say we resume school in a normal time frame. I don't want to get too far ahead of us. I mean, we're still in late April here. But it could be a situation where if we're still having to practice some certain social distancing techniques come August, come September, we may see class sizes rationed because of the social distancing orders. Maybe school is going to be that petri dish that we talk about because, hey, let's face it, one of the things that one of the stats you might want to believe is that the kids are stronger, their lung power, their immune systems are younger and stronger, and maybe that's why they haven't fallen victim necessarily as much to COVID. But moving forward, getting people in mass gatherings is something that at this point we're still looking to avoid. So those class sizes may be down to 10 or less, 15 or less, 25 or less, forcing them to do more distance learning, Adam.
And one of the things I was thinking about this, because it was a few years before my time at Santana, when Santana was pretty much the only game in town in Santee. They used to do double sessions. Where a group would go in the morning and then the other group would go in the afternoon to the evening. I was, talking with my roommate who is the lead grounds guy at Santana. We were talking about this. Could they do juniors and seniors in the morning, whatever day, whatever classes, Mondays, Wednesdays, or whatever, and then freshmen, sophomores on Tuesdays, Thursdays, whatever classes, and so on. Break it up that way. If they have to have, like you said, smaller class sizes.
Yeah, well, Adam, I remember that. I remember when Santana started, when they were doing that. That's very interesting. Hey, I wanted to ask Jim something too, though, because Jim, of course, we're talking about your role as an educator. We also, of course, know you as a sports writer, San Diego Union Tribune. I heard today, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, saying that he thinks sports can get going again in late summer. And again, I don't want to get too much into it because it's all speculation. But as a sports writer, do you see football in the fall for high schools? And if you do, will it be maybe a limited number of fans where maybe mom and dad and two friends get a ticket for every player? How do you see it now, or is that just out there, Jim?
What kind of ticket do they get? Ticket to the game or a citation from the police?
Yeah, I mean, like, you get every player gets 4 tickets, so people are spaced out, so they're not, scrunched. They're not going to be able to have 8,000 people in a game.
Yeah, you can imagine what the supervisors that usually work the games, when they make sure the kids don't go to the other side of the stands to hang out with their friends. Now they're going to be going through the stands and making sure everybody's 6 feet apart.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that could be crazy. Once again, way too above my pay grade to make that call or understand. My hope is that my hope is I don't think we're going to come to that situation. I think San Diego's done a wonderful job of doing the quarantine, doing what we need to do to flatten that curve, spread this thing out, let the hospitals adjust to what they need to do, and eventually we're going to slowly open back up, and maybe by summer have those things opened up for the social. It's not that much of a concern anymore by the fall. I could very much. I'm looking forward to high school football.
Oh, man.
Shocked, whatever. I don't know too much in terms of the science of it. Hopefully the summer comes and the sun knocks it all away.
Yeah, because we look at it. It's funny, Adam, we got this little lull in our lives a little bit, guys, from sports, and you never want to say don't take our sports away. But, man, all of a sudden I feel like when sports comes back, I'm going to sport like I've never sported before.
Right. Just made my mornings a lot easier this week. My mornings are a lot shorter these days. I get to 2 pages in the business section. That's about it.
Jim, how much you've only been back doing it but you've had a class in front of you then online, right? Do you find yourself, giving instruction at the grade school level, especially giving instruction or education on what we're going through? I mean, it's new to all of us. But still, that grade level is such a fine line of social cognizance and health cognizance. Are you explaining to them what's going on in this world, or are they getting that education at home? Families teaching them. They're at that level of grade that you teach is such an interesting time in a young person's life.
I think primarily they are getting it from home, also from watching television and other programs. You can't get away from
that could be bad.
Yeah, exactly. But I think they're starting to realize that they are a part of history, as if they were 10 years old or 11 years old or whatever age at the start of World War II, or whatever age at the start of some other world event historical. I think they're starting to get that. And I'm encouraging them to do as much writing as they can, something they can keep years later, take a look at it and share with their offspring or their friends later, 30, 40 years down the road. Look at what I was doing back then. I got thinking about this from my own standpoint, because I teach 4th grade and it's mostly 9 or 10-year-olds. What if we had to do a quarantine when I was 10 years old?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. First off, I'm 7th of 9 kids, so there would be 11 people in one house without supposedly going outside or doing those kinds of things. It's crazy. And we had, practically zero technology.
Steve and Adam, listen to this. Jim and I talked last week about this, and maybe that just reminded me what Jim said that. And I would almost issue a challenge, especially if this show we're kind of talk about some of the heavier topics a little bit of late, at least the last month or two. But Jim, I thought it was just an awesome idea, chronicling your feelings for a young person, especially we ask kids to write, to journal, and to do things like that. And boy, if they were to do something like that at this time now, go back, open that book up 10, 20, 30 years down the line, think of how much they'll not only remember, but probably can educate their own children one day on tumultuous times in life, maybe that they will never see, because we never thought we would see this day.
Well, Ramon, it's interesting what you're saying, because I can remember when President John F. Kennedy was shot. I was in 3rd grade, and my teacher, I'm very old, and my teacher was really shook up, and she said, "Does anybody have any questions?" And the thing I remember, the first question from a 3rd grader after JFK had been assassinated, one of my 3rd grade classmates said, "Will the guy who shot him go to jail?" That's the way 3rd graders think. We got to remember at that level, that's how they think. And it was, I've never forgotten that day.
Right.
Yeah, Jim, you were talking about that. Tell me about what your thoughts were when we talked about chronicling or journaling this whole situation for young people, maybe as part, I don't know if it'd be a part of a curriculum even.
Right. Well, it's like that meme I saw where they asked the kid why are the schools closed, and he said because we ran out of toilet paper. So,
yeah.
Do they really know why the schools are closed? I think they're starting to get it, and I encourage them to do that chronicling, and to be a part of history. It's something we teach about all the time in social studies, that primary source of what is happening. Hopefully they will take that and do that. I'm pushing them along that avenue. We're taking steps to doing that. I would like them to get on it. I think we all could do that too. How long would that take? Just cut down, keep a little journal going through.
Yeah, and hopefully it's only a pinpoint in time. Hopefully, yeah. You want to talk? I want to talk a little bit of prep football, and I know we're just trying to get through 2020, and we're putting the pressure on Jim to go into 2021. We're not going to ask him why Kim Jong-un is the top trending subject right now on Twitter, but Jim, looking forward, Tyler Buckner and the Helix Highlanders. I mean, that's something to look forward to. Hopefully it's not a long summer, because we need our football, and we need to see what arguably could be one of the top teams in the history of the county, as it looks right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when I saw that, I just went, whoa. That'll be very, very interesting. What a tremendous athlete, and for him to move into that role, I don't think he have fairly the same role that he had at Bishop's, but what he brings to the table in terms of his legs and arms, and his ability to quick shoot it like that could make that team. They're already dynamic. Outright scary.
Yeah, you know what?
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry. I just got to say real quick. It's funny when I saw Tyler Buckner in the Division II championship against El Camino last year. I hadn't seen him play, and he accounted for by himself for over 600 yards. I think the last time I saw a player that dominant would have been in the early 70s to mid 70s when Mark Malone was at El Cajon Valley High School. I remember Mark would just get the ball and run, and nobody could tackle him. Tyler was the same way. I mean, I was amazed. And Adam, you were at the game against El Camino. If Tyler had 6 inches of space, he was gone. Nobody was catching him.
I was like I said, told you guys before. I stood next to Coach Dave Gross, the legendary coach in East County, and he coached down in the Valley. And Steve Sutton, of course, everyone knows Steve Sutton from West Hills, and Dave Gross made the comment, he's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. He beats out any of the guys that ever come out of the East County.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his footwork that night, it was a clinic in itself.
Yeah, I thought of Abraham Muhaisi, and the way he took over and dominated some games over there without changing. I'm not sure I've ever seen the like of that.
It was Abraham, but definitely the other closest person that I can recall. We've actually played them in the playoffs. Was Dylan Baxter from Mission Bay?
Oh yeah.
talk about a kid who pretty much did everything at Mission Bay. I mean, we played them in the semis for CIF one year, and he killed us. It was amazing. I mean, and watching Buckner last year. Of course, the last few years, having been at the game where he got injured at Grossmont on the fourth play of the game, which was really unfortunate. Just to see him come back and to do what he did, it's just simply amazing.
Yeah, and Adam, one thing I must say, I see where Shauna Johnson has put up that she misses high school football and that James Johnson's her son. Well, I'll tell you what, Shauna, we all miss high school football, and we all hope that James and everybody else is back out there come the fall. Must say that. Thanks so much for watching, by the way.
I didn't realize how much I missed it until we started talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't really missed it yet. We haven't missed it, right?
You called me afterwards.
The crazy thing is, because I'm not doing anything. Like everybody else, I'm not doing anything. I was laid off from my job. So I've been kind of trying to figure out how to fix the CIF football record book.
If anybody in the county is watching this video and knows of any records in CIF history that deserves or belongs to be in the CIF record book that is posted on the San Diego CIF site, please send all your inquiries to Adam Paul at EC Preps. He's going to make sure we're going to finally fix that record book, guys.
Well, no,
it's big enough, Adam. Kirk Kenny and myself, we were in charge of that record book for many, many years.
Well, that's what Dickens told. That's what Bill Dickens said.
They didn't want us anymore, They wanted us to do it for free.
Yeah.
Like everybody else.
It's just a shame because the book, it hasn't been updated in I don't know how long. Not even just football, but all the record books and stuff. But it's just something that being in the profession that we've done for a combined over 100 years, I'm assuming.
Easy.
I mean, you like to see the numbers recognized.
Yeah.
And particularly in this day and age, where statistics are really easy to compile and to share information, it's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, I'm just going to say I agree with what you say because, like you say, in this day and age, it's so easy to share information because Adam just mentioned, God bless the late, great Bill Dickens, who was my first boss and who was a boss for probably all of us. I remember with Bill back in the day, like in the mid-'70s when I would work with him, he would have a sheet, back before computers, he would have a sheet on every player. Jim Lindgren, 120 versus EC, FG, 3 field goals, free throws, 2 of 4, 8. He did it all by hand. I mean, I can remember one time the last day in basketball season, Bill and I were in the office. We were done about 11 o'clock at night with the paper for the next morning, but we stayed until 6 in the morning doing the statistics by hand. I can remember, when I got home, the roosters had already crowed. I mean, that's how it used to be. So nowadays, people have no excuse not to get that stuff to Adam Paul because, by the way, we just got Adam a new job tonight, at least for the time being.
In fact, if COVID goes on and we aren't able to start football season, God forbid, we're going to get Adam, we're going to get Steve Brand, we're going to get John Maffey, we're all going to go over to Wanda's garage and start taking apart those file cabinets one by one. And Bill would have it, and he'd take white out. Okay, and he'd
yeah. Trust me, when I was living
on yellow paper.
Yeah, when I was living with them for a couple years, they helped me out. that was our best friend was the white out.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny, Alan, because talking about stuff like that, I remember, we all know Mark Grant, the Padres announcer. I remember years ago, we both live up in Alpine. We had a fire up here, and thank God it missed his house. But I remember Mark saying, well, heck, some of my old coaches probably wish that fire would have burned all my old uniforms. I get it. And if we go to Bill Dickens' house, I want to find my sheet from 1973 at El Capitan High School baseball because I might want to rip up some of those statistics. The team mine, because we had a good team. We won the Lions tournament, 32-team Lions tournament, rated number 1 in the county. We didn't win CIF, but again, a few of us that were on that team, we probably just didn't have our stat sheets ripped up.
If you didn't have your stat, if you let one thing that didn't make sense on your stat sheet, you turned into Bill. I mean, it could have been like, punt return average. He'd like give it back to you like it was a school assignment.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you could ask Bill, the question now, Bill, is a first down, if they're on the 13-yard line, they score a touchdown, is that a first down or not? Because, it's funny because, as you know, rules from NFL to college to high school vary so much. Just like in college, if you return an interception 108 yards, it's only 100 yards. So, stuff like that. But again, Bill knew all that stuff. I think he did write the record book, so to speak, or the stats book.
Pretty much.
Jim, is a touchdown a first down in high school football? Adam, Jim?
If it is longer than the chains, if they cross the chains, it's the first down, you bet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I know, I felt good this week because, on Friday nights during the fall, I'm fortunate to do stats for 97.3 FM. I felt really good this week when Coach Contreras said, I can't wait to get out to a high school football game and sit next to Steve Dolan. And I thought, as long as we're 6 feet apart, I love Coach. I'm fortunate to do sports year round from the preps to the pros, but there's just nothing like being out on a Friday night at El Capitan, my alma mater, or any other high school. There's nothing like it.
Well, that's, when I talked to Jim last week, and he said, he was Moni, I don't know, we've been doing this a long time, and if there was ever a time that you might want to just I know you're working and everything, maybe now would be a good time if you want to stop. I said, why am I going to now? We just getting out of this situation. Like I said, I'm going to sport like I've never sported before. I can't wait for football now. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Hey, Moni, we talked before we went on. I'm sorry, Jim. We talked about the NFL. I'm saying no matter what, the NFL is going to play because they've got too much money at stake. Their money almost all comes from TV. Interesting because I was talking to a friend of mine in Dallas this past week. Like he said, they can play the NFL in Dallas because think of how many stadiums they have there. You've got Jerry World's new Arlington Stadium next store where the Rangers used to play baseball. They could play there. They got SMU. They got TCU. They got the Cotton Bowl. They got up in North Texas and Denton. They've got some high school stadiums or like pro stadiums. I mean, worst case scenario, the NFL could play in Dallas, play all the games there or a place like that. Because I predict the NFL will play because there's too much at stake there. I mean, like in Major League Baseball, TV doesn't pay as much as in the NFL. I mean, if Major League Baseball plays in Arizona and Florida or whatever they do, the TV money's not going to be there to cover all the salaries like it does in the NFL. So again, I predict that if nothing else, the NFL will go on this year, no matter what it takes.
Yeah, Jim, I've already been watching this week some of the return of baseball. I've been watching, when I'm up 2:30 in the morning, right? Taiwan baseball comes on at 2:30 in the morning, and the Korean Baseball League is starting their preseason this week. And if they're willing to go forward with playing games over there in front of no fans, I imagine that United States Pro Sports are right behind.
Adam. Did you guys happen to see the video of the brawl at the Taiwan baseball game?
Yeah, and in Taiwan the other night they had a bench. Henry Sosa was the pitcher. You remember him, Steve? He was the Giants prospect, pretty decent pitcher, and he nailed the guy right on the bottom after they were getting into
Listening to the broadcast to the announcers, one of them said something about the monkeys because that was one of the team names. And I about died when I heard that.
Well, they're in first place so far. The Rakuten Monkeys. I think they're like 5-0 or 5-1, but not that I'm paying attention to Taiwan baseball too much.
Hey, you know what the brawl reminded me of? This is funny because you saw it took Henry Sosa, it took him 4 pitches to hit the batter when he kept trying to hit it. I was actually in 1984, and Jim knows since I was a sports writer at the LA Times in 1984, I covered the Padres. I was in Atlanta the day they had the brawl. A couple of things. First of all, people forget it was a 2:00 game and it rained for an hour and a half. And when it started the game, it was just as miserably humid as could be. But to get to the point, what they reminded me of when it took Henry Sosa 4 pitches to hit the batter, the Padres had 4 different pitchers try to hit Pascual Perez, who was on Wiggins in the first pitch. Finally, in the 8th inning, Craig Lefferts hit him. So I was like, when I saw this pitcher and, when I saw Sosa couldn't hit anybody, I'm like, man, he should have been with the Padres in 1984. They couldn't hit anybody either when they tried.
That changed their whole season, changed the city too. They went, win 13 straight after that and took off. But I wonder if Moni has Henry Sosa on his fantasy team.
Probably.
Well, it's funny. There are some official, I don't want to say official. Anybody can simulate a game. Anybody can plug in their PlayStation or whatever, but there have been some games that have been authorized by the leagues as the official sim of MLB, and there's been some wagering on that. That was kind of interesting. And, there will be some betting when it comes to the NFL draft coming up. There's a lot of betting that'll be going on that. Who will get drafted, where they'll get drafted, what positions get drafted, and things like that. So that hasn't stopped. And if you're really, really crazy, other than Taiwan baseball and basketball, there's some horse tracks have been conducting their races so far. Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Also Gulfstream Park in Florida, probably the biggest track going, in Tampa Bay Downs. Also, they have not missed a beat. They've missed a couple of meets because of some COVID-related things, but they've been moving forward. I'll let you go, Steve. I just want to mention also, I'm kind of covering sports and COVID here. 2 golf tours completed tournaments have not stopped during COVID in Arizona. Yeah. Both the Cactus Tour for the ladies, Haley Moore of Escondido just won a tournament a couple of weeks ago, and the men competed on the Outlaw Tour.
Now, Moni, what I wanted to go back to, it's interesting when you were talking about betting, because what I've heard and read on the NFL draft this Thursday, normally there's hardly any betting, but people are so much having waited to bet. Is it true that they expect there to be about 10 times as much gambling as normal on who goes where in the NFL draft? And did I hear that right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we've already seen as well on some of these other sports. They're creating, Oaklawn Park. I mentioned Oaklawn Park and another, I want to say, oh boy, I wish I could get this one right. One other track that's been conducting a horse racing meet has actually gone to their board to extend their meet longer. They are making more money than they have ever had by the amount of handle, and they just, because the conditions at their track are fine and they feel safe, and they're not under one of the states with an order, they wanted to move forward and conduct another couple of weeks of live thoroughbred racing so that they could make more money. It doesn't seem like a terrible idea. We're starving for any kind of content, really, out here in the land of sports. Even, yeah.
No, I was going to say, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club this year, because, they just canceled the county fair, and also Comic-Con just got canceled. I was watching some of the highlights of those horse races with nobody there, and they were talking about the gambling and stuff. So it's going to be, because they have yet to not cancel the horse racing season out here at Del Mar. So that's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and California racing will be one of the first things back here in the state on television, no crowds.
Now, Adam, it's funny you bring that up, because, and I'm going to sell a few papers for Jim in the San Diego Union Tribune. It's online now. Bryce Miller has a column up on just that. What is happening at Del Mar? There's no answer on that yet. He's talked to Joe Harper, who's been out there forever. And also, if I could advertise a little bit for the UT, read either San Diego Union Tribune online, or do like dinosaurs like me do, read it in the hard copy of the paper. But Bryce Miller has a really interesting column in there. Again, it's already online. I would assume it's in tomorrow's paper about what is happening at Del Mar. And again, it's kind of funny because Del Mar's like so many other things. Like, is there going to be high school football this year? Will there be Major League Baseball? There's no answer. But read his column. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting. A couple of weeks ago, reading about the Greyhounds in Caliente. They had finally stopped racing there, and then they were essentially giving the dogs up for adoption.
And
being taken to the United States because they didn't have the wherewithal to feed them. And we're so impacted by it's just
well, one of the great things, Jim, and if everybody looks at the thumbnail of this show, it's Jim with his two dogs, and there's no doubt the stories are kind of coming to light right now. Over this past week or so, many facilities are running out of dogs. Quite frankly, the public is. Hopefully, they'll continue to love and nurture those dogs after all this is over. But right now, fortunately, there's a run on the pound, and that's great news to get our little furry friends into the homes of some loving families that need companionship right now. Let's just hope that they're still interested when the dogs come a few months, hopefully when we're all out and about again.
Hope they keep them, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we all used to work with Karen Perlman, or Jim still. I mean, if nobody else will take them, I know Karen will. I've never seen a dog lover like her.
Yeah. She's great.
Yeah.
Well, that Chloe can sure do a handstand there, can't she?
Yeah.
Half of our audience knows what you're talking about. That's the scary thing, because they all follow Karen, and people don't know because they know about Karen being such a terrific news writer covering the news in East San Diego County and other parts of the county sometimes as well, but mostly out east. But her role and how significant it was when she was a sports writer, not only a groundbreaking sports writer for women, but also just a terrific sports writer, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, and anybody that knows Karen will know the story that she's told quite often when she first broke into sports writing. That was back in the day when they didn't let women in the locker room, and San Diego State actually changed their policy way back when for Karen, where they weren't letting her in the locker room, but they kept everybody out and started bringing players out. So Karen definitely was and is a trailblazer. And one of these weeks, we're going to have Karen on one of these weeks too. I haven't asked her, but she's just been asked, so she'll be on with it.
Yeah, at the time, I think Karen will point it out that, she was unwilling, not unwilling. I mean, she was a perfect person in that role, but the national spotlight was kind of thrust upon her, and she's so smooth that it didn't phase her really one bit, but. It shouldn't have been a story, and unfortunately, it was. But that's just the way that was the way things went back then.
Jim, it's funny. We're hopefully prep football will happen this year. Every year, the game, the battle for the musket game. You're the last person to write the article where Grossmont beat Helix back in '91. Every year, when I go look that up, your name pops up on the LA Times article. It's great. I mean, it sucks for Grossmont, but it just reminds me. I can always you typically look forward to reading that article every single year.
Yeah. Hey,
I wonder if Thompson was on that team and so forth for Grossmont. But isn't it funny? And the technology, the other day I was looking up something, I just bing, bing, boom, zip something in, and here comes a story I did on Chris Cannizzaro.
Oh,
back
wow.
from the 80s. Chris Cannizzaro Jr., when he was after San Diego State, as you know, Steve, tremendous ball player, All-American at San Diego State, but then went into the Boston organization. It was just amazingly funny, the technology to call up that story. Whoa, there's a blast.
Hey, Jim, I just wanted, if I could, I just saw Lynn Pompey put up something. Lynn, thanks so much for watching. We appreciate everybody for putting those comments up. Please do feel free to put them up, because we like to know that you're out there watching us. And we really enjoy doing this show, and we really hope that we're bringing something to people that are watching us. We just thanks so much to everybody out there who does pay attention to what we're doing, because we're just doing this for fun, and hopefully it's fun for those who are watching too.
And a shout out to him. Boy, he was a lot of fun to watch this year, last couple of years, wasn't he?
Oh, man. One of the best wide receivers in the last 25 years, man. Jaheim. Oh,
yeah. Great. Thanks to Lynn for watching, and good luck to Jaheim, man.
Everybody in the stadium knew the ball was coming to him.
Yeah, him and
Nothing,
Laverde.
another 60 pounds. He still come down with the ball all the time. It's just incredible.
Him and Jacob Laverde, man, what a 1-2 combo there. Quarterback receiver combo at Mount Miguel, man. Definitely one of the best in the last 20 years to hear.
Good guys too. Really good guys.
Yes.
And Jim, that's the thing. I mean, I'm teasing you a little bit for giving me a hard time and telling me to hang up my pen, but that's the reason we keep coming back. I mean, you don't need to do this either. I mean, you're entrenched in your career. I mean, you do an incredible job, and to get out to the field every Friday night's just part of your routine. But it's that blank canvas every year. You don't know. Yes, okay, Tyler Buckner, Helix are going to be great, but when you go to a game, you don't know who that next star is going to be, and you don't know how big their star is going to become. They could go on to be a great high school athlete, college athlete, even make it to the pros. But it's finding that one story where the guy, it might be the game of his life. And not that you'd say we'll never hear from him again, but that's because in a prep game, that kid reached the pinnacle of his career at that given moment that's going to give him a lifetime of memories as he goes on to do his, whatever career he chooses, whatever path in life he leads. There'll always be that one game. And fortunately, we're still able to capture it through the pen, not just on the video highlights.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's well said too, because those students will remember that. I think if you talk to any coach around, they will talk and remember that person who was a second teamer who went on to have a wife and 3 kids and a great job as an accountant somewhere. They remember those successes, those people who are successes in life, just as much as they do the tremendous athletes and stuff like that. It's absolutely wonderful. It's
an awesome feeling, Steve, when you are covering a game, right? And that story is coming in your head. This guy, you can't believe what you're just seeing. This kid's become the star of the game this time, and he may not have been the star previously. And you had that, or also, and I think Jim's really good at doing this because kind of what we've learned over the years from Bill and from everybody is, focusing the spotlight on someone that maybe doesn't get the attention. Maybe it's not the big star of the game, but they couldn't have won without this particular guy. A lineman, a fullback, or something like that. That gives you an angle, gives you a lead.
Right. Yeah, I know way back in the late 70s when I was first working for Bill Dickens at the Daily California. I remember one time I was doing a story after a game on a Helix running back who had a great game. And the first thing he said to me as I interviewed him after the game, he says, "Hey, here's my 5 linemen. My left tackle is Jim Lindgren. My left guard is Adam Paul. My center is Ramon Scott." And then he mentioned the other 2 guys. He said, "Please put them in the paper too." And I just thought that was so great because, again, you're going to be writing about the running back that gains 250 yards and all, but what you're not writing about is the lineman. I mean, it's kind of like with linemen, for instance, the Dallas Cowboys last year, they were 2-5 when their center, Travis Fredericks, didn't play, and he's retired. So it makes you wonder how great was Dak Prescott when Travis wasn't there. I mean, you got to remember all those years the Denver Broncos, I remember they used to every year they'd have a different guy rush for 1,000 yards. Well, why did a different guy rush for 1,000 yards every year? Because they had the same 5 guys up front blocking for him.
Right.
Jim, we kind of saw that a couple years ago when your nephew played on the Cathedral Catholic. And remember, Sean Poma did an interview standing behind the 5 linemen because he really thought that they deserved all the credit. That was awesome.
That was. You couldn't even see him from behind. The linemen were up here and Sean was behind him.
Right.
Yeah.
What a running back he was, and such a great, like you said, he, tipped his cap to the linemen, and every couple times I talked to him, very respectful and very appreciative of everything.
Yeah, and we're not about to anoint Helix here, guys. I mean, those games are still going to be when you get up when you're playing Saints, you're playing the Dons, and those games are. You could have all the talent in the world, and you could throw it out the window when the big games come. They still have to play the games on the field, and Jim Lindgren's going to be there, Steve, in the biggest games in the East County.
Yeah, and you know what? Jim's covering for these guys. But I got a question for you, Jim, because of course your nephew played the last couple of years at Cathedral Catholic. Now you know this year Cathedral is playing De La Salle, which has been a state powerhouse for years and years and years. Do you know that by chance what the guys up at Cathedral are thinking about that? Does he ever talk about that, or what do you think of that? Cathedral going up and playing a state powerhouse like that?
Well, first off, I wanted to make an announcement about JIM Lindgren and where he's going to college next year.
Where is he? Have you got the hat?
He just made his choice. He was getting an awfully good look from Cal Poly play up there. But he chose, and here once again, I think it's those choices in life that what happens during your high school career that make you. He chose Carnegie Mellon out in Pennsylvania.
Oh wow,
so he's got one of those insane GPAs of 4.6, like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Terrific school out there. So he's super excited about it. He's going to get football a try, see where it goes. Right now, they're just in the wait and sees out there as well. But,
pretty well decorated career as an offensive lineman at Cathedral Catholic. It'll just be a matter if the workload was not of interest to him. I'm sure maybe just wants to progress from an academic standpoint. But wow.
He's excited. And to answer your question, Steve, I think it's an awesome opportunity for Cathedral Catholic. In fact, Moni and I were talking about that with Helix and their whole scheduling issue, having to schedule seven non-conference games, non-league games this year. Crazy. I said, somebody's got to go play De La Salle, be it Helix or Cathedral or something like that, and just get a home and away. And that shouldn't be a scary, undaunting thing. It's a wonderful experience up there. I have had the pleasure of actually going to cover a football game at De La Salle. Rancho Buena Vista played them in the midst of winning streak, 152-game winning streak. And I think Rancho Buena Vista at the time was number 78 in that streak or something like that. But just an amazing experience to go up there to the Bay Area and cover a high school football game. And it was uncanny. Now, I went to St. Augustine High School, and that Concord De La Salle up there was a time warp. I felt like I was stepping onto that North Park campus of St. Augustine. The smell was even there. Everything about the school reminded me of St. Augustine, the football experience. And Sean Noel, God bless him. That's a wonderful move.
Yeah, no, I saw De La Salle during that winning streak because they came down here and played LCC when Costa Canyon had Kevin O'Connell was quarterbacking. And man, you want to talk about night and day. I mean, La Costa Canyon gave them a hell of a game for quite a while and ended up losing the game. But man, and then of course, like you said, you've been up there. I've been up there, saw them play. I went to that game where they played the famous Cal Poly game on that Saturday, and it's such a beautiful campus, and the atmosphere is something else. It's like walking into seeing an NFL team play.
Wow, or maybe a high school in Texas, right? I mean, because we were talking earlier about welcome play there.
I mean, the guys are huge. It's just like watching the Trinity League up in the southern section. Those guys, average 300 plus pounds on the offensive line. Quarterback 6'5", 6'6", or whatever with a rocket arm. I mean.
Well, Steve, you talked about NFL games out in the Texas area. I believe some of those high schools could hold some games as well.
Oh, yeah.
You've got some amazing facilities. Last year, you had a case of Central High School needed a game loosely based on that shooting that they had out there in Texas previous to. And there was a snaggle of games and forfeitures and so forth. And Central ended up playing out there in El Paso, and they received $15,000 to travel to El Paso to play and kick the snot out of the team they went to go play.
Wow.
And they just raved about the facilities. Everybody had a jumbo scoreboard. Every high school out there had a jumbo scoreboard with reruns.
Wow.
It's absolutely incredible. So it's a definite world out there. But you can see exactly where high school sports is very important to so many people throughout this country, and certainly here in San Diego. And it's just a shame of what these students in the springtime are missing out on, especially the seniors, and what they're missing out on.
Yeah.
I've spent a good portion of the last 5 weeks talking to many of my old high school buddies of what we experienced in those final months of the high school season and the high school years. And those are just memories you cannot replace and get back. So it's really sad for those people.
Yeah.
They will live. We will all live through this, but it is they're missing out on those.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, I got out just before I came on here. I was in a Zoom meeting with probably about 20 or so softball coaches here in San Diego, and they were all talking about what they were going to or at least attempt to do for a senior day, to honor the seniors, and also an end of the year type deal. Jim Bennett, if you don't know him, the veteran coach, softball coach up at Poway, has been up there for quite a long time. He's got 10 seniors on his squad this year. I mean, and he's devastated for them.
Do they get an extra year next year, Adam?
Those
high school kids come back for one more year.
Right. They were joking about that.
We'll do in that biology class next year.
Right.
I don't know if they were necessarily even joking about it, Adam.
Much better in that biology class next year.
There have been some districts around the country that have actually, or I don't want to say how many of them there are, but actually giving parents an option, say if things get back to normal relatively quickly, of just keeping them back 1 year. And so don't be surprised if we look here, 6, 7, 8 years down the line when we have some really great senior athletes around.
But
they're all a year older than everybody else.
You got to be careful about that because it's not just at a district level that's got to go through. You remember now, CIF has a rule that if you're 19 or whatever, 18 or 19 or whatever it is, you're out of eligibility, and that's cost some teams in the past. My dad, this is going back a long time ago, but played for San Diego High when they were ratted out because they didn't know one of the kids that played had turned whatever age of the time it was, and somebody ratted them out, and they ended up costing them the league championship at San Diego High for baseball.
Did they even have birth certificates back then, Adam?
Yeah.
Probably filed with Barack Obama's or something there.
Right.
Well, Jim, it's funny when you talk about staying around forever. I mean, it kind of reminds me on the college level at BYU, they all go on missionary trips for 2 years. So you got a 21-year-old at San Diego State playing against a 25-year-old at BYU, and they're both seniors. So I guess you could get the BYU advantage, if nothing else.
They got hairlines like Steve and I.
You wouldn't believe how many athletes that the four of us have covered who did 8th grade twice.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Who repeated in 8th grade, so that once they got to high school, they were a year older. There are a lot.
Going way back, we had that issue at El Capitan in the late 60s. They had a running back, and he turned into a famous rodeo guy. His name's Fred Height. Fred, he was as good a running back as there was for years and years.
Yeah.
And he aged out too because of what we're talking about. And it is an advantage when you think, like, if you've got a guy that's almost 19 and he's playing against a guy that's 15. Now, if we're talking about ages 32 versus 28, that's one thing. That's not a big difference. But when you're talking about 19 versus 15, huge difference.
We've learned a lot. Learned a lot in 1 hour with veteran sports writer and educator Jim Lindgren. Steve, let's have Jim back on when we can talk some football.
Yeah. Jim, could you make sure they have high school football in the fall so we can get you back?
I'm gonna make sure of it. Yes, I'm gonna talk to that new commissioner now. There's another thing we didn't discuss.
That's one of the things, Jim, that we've talked about on the few COVID era shows that we've had doing this. We didn't expect it to evolve into this, but I kind of touted with these guys that, prep football might be the coming out period for everyone to get out and start doing things again. hopefully sooner we can start to get a little bit back to normal. But flattening the curve right now without a vaccine just means keeping things status quo, exercising all the things that we know to do, as right, social distancing, wash our face and hands, and stay inside and pray. But maybe, just maybe, high school football is what we're all going to look forward to, where we can actually get out. We might not be able to get to any pro games or college games, but you know what? There might be certain things where maybe we're out at high school games because we can keep those crowds smaller a little bit. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, but could be a big, big deal.
Well, yeah, Ramon, I can't wait to be reading Jim Lindgren's story on East County high school football in the San Diego Union Tribune, and for sports to be back having its own section instead of just 2 pages on the back of it.
Yeah.
So again, hey, Jim Lindgren, thanks so much for being with us tonight. I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. I certainly want to thank Adam Paul from EC Preps and Ramon Scott from EastCountySports.com. And as I always say, Ramon, thanks so much. I don't know how you do it to have 4 of us on the screen like this. You know what you're doing. I don't. But thanks so much for putting this all together tonight. Thanks for everybody who's watching out there. We really appreciate everybody. And have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.